Legs crossed, back straight, eyes closed, breathing in through our noses and out through our mouths. Feeling the power of you controlling your breathing. Knowing, remembering, it's the same power we use to control our thinking. Now use that power. Use your determination to see in your mind today your best effort in all the exercises, stretches, movements we do here together. See it in your mind right now. See yourself doing the best you can, giving the best effort you've ever done for anything. Maybe you want to visualize the last time we did these exercises and stretches together. Go there and think right now about what you could do better or differently this time. It's the same process we use to grow our minds and grow the strength and health of our bodies and energy.
In the night I lie and look up at you. When the morning comes I watch you rise. There's a paradise they couldn't capture, that bright infinity inside your eyes.
매일 밤 내게 날아가 꿈이란 것도 잊은 채 나 웃으며 너를 만나. Never ending forever baby. You are my universe and I just want to put you first. You are my universe and you make my world out of inside.
어둠이 내겐 더 변했었지. 길어진 그림자 속에서. And they said that we can't be together because we come from different sides.
You are my universe and I just want to put you first. You are my universe and you make my world light up inside. My universe, my universe, my universe. 해주는 건 너란 사랑으로 수놓아진 별내 우주에 넌 다른 세상을 만들어주는 걸 너는 내 별이자 나의 호주니까 지금의 시련도 결국엔 잠시니까 너는 언제까지나 지금처럼 밝게만 빛나줘 우리는 너로 따라 이긴 밤을 수놓고 너와 함께 날아가 When I'm without you I'm crazy 자 어서 내 손을 잡아 We are made of each other baby You are my universe and I just want to put you first
Almost 1 minute of the 3 added on have gone. Here's Messi! 4-0!
All right, guys, today, as we close off with Conor McGregor's great mind, he shares with us his advice that we should all train in martial arts. And for this, to apply it to our lives, I think we have to remember that martial arts, the biggest part of martial arts, is the part of the power of our minds and how we can apply this to live a full, complete, peaceful, and happy life. Now, the physical part of martial arts is definitely beneficial, and we have to fight the negative sort of stigma or connotation associated with the fighting in the physical sense. It's the discipline aspect that Conor McGregor reminds us of, that sort of dedication that martial arts brings out, that commitment and the empowerment, the confidence that you get in being in it. And so let's apply the greatest fight, the greatest martial art in control, and that is controlling our mind today and every day. Have a great morning, everyone.
I'm excited to dive in today. Habits is something I've been fascinated by for years because I'm always so curious. Like why do we do the things that we do, and how can we turn ideas into actions, which become sort of consistent behaviors, and then habits over time. And I was kind of thinking about what is my approach to healthy habits, and I'm so excited to dive into all of like the different coaches from this month because I'm so curious how everybody approaches this. And I've been exposed to sort of like the large scale frameworks that I think many of us have probably seen from people like in the early days, Charles Duhigg in the book, The Power of Habit, and more recently, James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, for sort of like the bigger frame of understanding that, a habit is this behavior that becomes somewhat automatic for us. And when it does, it slides from the sort of like the front part of the brain that's very energy intensive, more towards like the older part of the brain that's much more efficient and just goes on autopilot. So we're always trying to create habits in everything that we do. And also because we know that, it's our behavior that is repeated over time that tends to be the big difference maker. It's not those like one-time big monumental efforts. Those make us feel good for a hot minute, sometimes a hot hour, sometimes a hot week if we're really lucky. But it's the little things that we do, over time, repeatedly, that really can make a huge difference. And I thought an interesting frame that I would share to walk you through my lens on habit is actually what I call the good life buckets. But before I dive into that, I wanted to share one other take on sort of the general topic of habit formation that I think is maybe a little bit less explored. Like I said, so many of us have been exposed to James's work, Charles's work over the years, and the idea of creating habit loops and the idea of, like identifying behaviors and then making it easy and setting up rewards. There's somebody else who's done a metric ton of research In a more academic setting, Professor B.J. Fogg, who has run something that at one point was called the trying to remember the name of the lab. Now it's like the Persuasive Technology Lab there. But it turns out that many of the most habit-forming apps, for better or worse, that are out on the planet these days were generated by students of his that went through his class and then turned around and created these apps, things like Instagram. And he's been fascinated at how we create an experience that allows somebody to step into it and then turn that into a regular behavior that just becomes a repeated part of their life, almost on autopilot. Like, how do we actually make that happen? And he came up with this thing that he calls the Fogg behavioral model. And the shorthand for it is B equals MAT. So B is the behavior that we're looking to turn into a habit. M is motivation. How motivated are you to do it? A is ability. Do you have the ability to actually do this? And T is a trigger, a certain thing that sort of like says, it's time, do the behavior. And what's fascinating about that is that most of us, when we're trying to turn a behavior, let's say, like having a glass of water, every morning when we first get up, we're trying to turn that into a habit because, we feel like it's a good way to start our day, to hydrate ourselves. Very often we're trying to convince ourselves, we focus on the motivation side of the equation. So the trigger in his model, the MAT, motivation, ability, trigger, the trigger is basically waking up. It's pretty straightforward. We don't have to do anything to create the trigger. It just happens. We open our eyes. And then we choose like, well, how do we, if we really want to build this into a habit, do we focus more on motivating ourselves to do it? Or do we focus more on on the ability side, making it as easy as humanly possible, removing as much complexity and friction from the process as humanly possible? Well, turns out most of us actually focus on the motivation side. How do I motivate myself to do this thing? Whether it's drinking a glass of water in the morning, whether it's walking around my block 5 times, whether it's whatever it may be, focus on like, how do I get motivated to do it? And we put all the motivational quotes up and we listen to the stuff when we're doing it to get ourselves motivated. So it's exciting and energizing. And we focus on like the reasons to do it. We do all the like, here are the 5 things why this is really, really, really important to me. And we write it on our mirror in the morning. And we do everything we can to sort of like flip the motivational switch. Well, it turns out that motivation is not unimportant. But what BJ's research found is that it's actually way less important and way less effective to focus on the motivation side to develop our habits, our healthy habits, than it is on the ability side, on the ease side. What he realized was that the thing that actually will allow you to say yes to a behavior and then repeat it enough times that it turns into a habit is to literally do everything humanly possible to make it impossible to say no, to make it as easy as possible to do the thing, to remove complexity from it, to remove friction from it, right? So this shows up as removing steps, removing intensity, removing duration, even removing doing the thing at a level that would make it, quote, effective in the beginning, and just focusing on making it literally impossible to not do the most basic thing that would eventually grow into a higher level of intensity, like more engagement, that would grow into something where it becomes effective. So for example, rather than focusing on why, like getting myself super motivated to walk a mile in my neighborhood every day, take a lunch break and walk a mile, right? That's going to take me, 15, 20 minutes. It's going to take me out of my day. It's going to take time away from my lunch or away from my work. If it's really hot out, I might get sweaty. I've got to change. I got to put on my running shoes. I got to do yada, 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 yada. So maybe I'm going to focus on all the things to motivate myself to do it, right? I'm going to get myself up for it. I'm going to remind myself how important it is to my health, to my well-being, to my state of mind, to my relationships. I'm going to put a little thing on my computer, a sticky note that says it's time, and I'm going to have 5 more sticky notes, each one with the reason why this is important to me. So I remember the motivation side, right? But it turns out that's not going to be the thing that actually gets me to do it. It's helpful, sure. The thing that gets me to do it is to literally structure that walk in a way where it's impossible to not do it. So if I actually want to do this, and I'm going to focus on the ability side more instead, what I'm going to do is say, okay, so every day at 12:30, I want to build the habit of walking. So how do I make it so it's almost impossible not to do it? Well, I'm going to figure out what are all the friction points. It's a bit of a pain in the neck to like go and have to change clothes and change shoes and go through my closet and pick out what I'm going to wear. Okay, so instead of doing that, I'm going to put literally like right in me. I'm in my office right now, right? Over to my side is a couch. I am going to, when I wake up, before I actually have to do the activity, I'm going to put my running shoes right next to me on the floor. I'm going to put my shorts and my t-shirt right next to me on the couch, and my sunglasses and my sunscreen, because I live in the mountains at altitude and you got to protect yourself. So literally I've just taken a whole lot of friction out of the process for me, right? I'm also going to put a little water bottle with me right there because I know I might get a little thirsty if it's hot out, but I'll take my hat with me. So I've now taken care of the pain in the neck side of like, I've got to like leave. I've got to go to my closet. I've got to find my shoes. I got to put them on. I got to figure out what I'm going to wear. I got to find my sunscreen. And if it's hot out, well, I already have my hat there, so I'm protected. So I've basically said everything that would be sort of like, make it give just enough friction that I wouldn't do it. I've pre-thought about, and I've actually set myself up. So it's literally impossible for me. Like if I finish our jam today, and for my time, it's going to be actually about 12:30 in Mountain Time. And my goal was to go and walk for 20 minutes and turn that into a habit, right? And I sort of like, I hit the leave button on our video platform here, and I glanced over to my left, and sitting there were all the things I just talked about. It would be literally impossible for me not to actually just take 40 seconds, throw them on, and walk out the door. Whereas the extra 5 minutes it would take me to do that right now, it sounds absurd that would actually create enough friction or resistance that would stop me from doing the behavior that I want to turn into a habit. But what the research shows is it does. It takes an absurdly small amount of complexity or friction to actually knock us off our desire to do something that is healthy, and then eventually do it enough times through repetition to turn it into a habit.
This can be your day for personal growth. This can be that day you committed to and you remember and you go, that was the day I got myself a community. I got better coaches. I committed to making my life the absolute best that I could. This is that day. Make today your growth day. Click the button on this page and sign up right
Alexis Sanchez right across the 6. 2-0. Messi walks it in.
Good afternoon, guys. How's it going today? Are you thinking like a martial artist? And I'm not just saying in the physical sense. If you are training in martial arts in the physical sense and you've enjoyed the benefits today, that's great. But what I'm referring to mostly is, are you thinking like a fighter who fights to control his or her mind each and every moment? How's that part going today? Are you living the martial arts way of living, which is being the best in everything we do, think, and say? So in every moment, even the simplest thing, like brushing our teeth or sweeping a floor, we have to remember that the martial arts way of living is to do a simple task to the best of your ability and then enjoy the compounding effects of that in our life. So get back at it again. Believe that you can do it. Believe it. Never give up on thinking like a martial artist. Have a great afternoon, everyone.
Everybody works on a commission. My secretary, the president of our company, the president of the United States, the truck driver, anybody works on a commission. Even if they have a salary, they're on a commission because the salary is dependent upon productivity. And if they do not produce, then it's just a question of time before the job itself is gone. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a fact. Why, you can even get to be the president of the United States. And if you don't produce like you ought to, they'll get you. George Washington, probably one of the greatest salesmen who ever lived, and I want to tell you what his sales job was. He literally had to sell the farmers and the merchants and the backwoodsmen and the seamen on leaving what they were doing, coming and joining the Army or the Navy, going to war against the most powerful nation on the face of this earth, the biggest Navy and the strongest Army, and he had to sell them along the idea, let's go fight those people. But let me tell you in advance, now if we win, I'm not going to be able to pay you. And if we lose, they're going to string you to the highest tree.
Zig Ziglar was one of the world's most popular motivational speakers. Ziglar was one of 12 children raised by a widowed mother during the Great Depression. He wrote over 25 books, including See You at the Top, and inspired millions of people around the world. In this exclusive training, Ziglar shares with us simple but effective strategies that will help you close more sales, serve your customers better, and make more money. Special thanks to the Ziglar family for partnering with us to release this exclusive content on our YouTube channel. Enjoy.
My goodness, thank you very much. Wow, I just know the folks who are attending the seminar with the film presentation are also just as excited as you are. I'm absolutely convinced that America is the greatest land on the face of this earth because of the profession of selling and because we are a land of salespeople. Nobody could claim we're the greatest because of our size, because China and Russia and Brazil and Canada are bigger than we are. Nobody can say it's because of our population, because China and India and Russia all have a lot more people than we have. They can't even say it's because of our natural resources, although we have certainly been more than abundantly blessed in this area. But then so has Brazil, and so has Canada. For that matter, so has Russia and China and many of the other places. They cannot say it's because of our technological superiority, though we certainly are the most technologically advanced nation in the world. But in many areas the Japanese, in some areas the English, some the Swiss, and some the Germans, and other peoples have certain technological advantages, even the Russians do, over us. No? I'm absolutely convinced we're the greatest land on this earth because we are a land of salespeople. The free enterprise system is here, and basically the salesperson epitomizes the opportunity which free enterprise brings. And yet, despite this fact, there seem to be a lot of people in the world of selling who, for whatever reason, seem to be a little embarrassed to say they're salespeople. Or they're proud to represent the company they represent. They're proud of the product they sell. But for whatever reason, they seem to be a little hesitant to say, I am a salesman or I am a sales lady. We want to change that attitude, because your attitude will enable you to close the close ones. Those that really are the cliffhangers and all of that kind of good stuff. So let's look at the sales process, and I want to do a sales job on you. I'm flat going to sell you and on why you ought to be so proud to be a salesperson. Let's take the word sell itself. It is better described by the Norwegian word selja, pronounced or spelled rather S-E-L-J-E, and it literally means to serve. To sell, ladies and gentlemen, is to serve. America itself, as you probably know, was discovered by a salesman. Not by any stretch of imagination could you accuse Christopher Columbus of being a navigator. Now, if you will recall, that dude is looking for India. He missed it 12,000 miles. Now, from where I come from, that ain't navigation. And the interesting thing is, he went back home and said, hey, we found it. No, he absolutely was not a navigator. And you might say, well, was he a salesman? Well, let me build a case for Chris in this particular case. First of all, he was an Italian in Spain. Now, that is way out of his territory. He's speaking a foreign language. He only has one prospect to call on. And if he misses a sale, he has to swim home. Now, you tell me, was he a salesman or not? He called on Isabella, and he told the story, and when he told the story, she did like a lot of other prospects that said, well, Chris, sound like a good idea. But man, $12,000 for 5 little old ships, price is too high. A lot of people don't realize they started out with 5, but 2 of them did go over the side. No, when she brought up the price objection, Chris not only heard what she said, he understood what she was saying. She was saying, now look, Chris, $12,000, man, the price is too high. The benefits are too low. And so he started giving her the benefit about a short route to India, about all of the wealth, the undiscovered land. And since he was a Christian, I'm sure he sold the queen on the idea that she would have a chance to take the message to all of those ignorant savages along the way. Yes, he really did do a sales job. And as he made the presentation, she said, look, Chris, okay, the price is fair, but I just don't have any money. How many of you have ever heard that objection brought up? And so Chris looked at her and he said, look, Izzy. Now, since I wasn't there, I'm not absolutely certain this is verbatim. But he says, you got that string of beads hanging around your neck. Let's take them down to the pawn shop, let's hock them, we'll finance this deal. Well, your history books will tell you that they literally had to borrow the money to finance the trip. And then Chris had to do a lot more selling. He had to sell the sailors on the idea of making a trip with him. And then once they got out there, every day they sailed. And you got to remember the ignorance and the fear and the doubt and the superstitions which were so prevalent in those days. And so he had to overcome that. As a matter of fact, the further they went, day after day, there was a mutiny threatened. They were going to throw Christopher Columbus overboard. Every day he had to sell in order to sail. He had to say, fellas, let's just give it another day. Another call is what he really was saying to us in those days, wasn't he? And then one morning the glad cry came forth. Land ho! And the most profitable sales call in history came to a close. And at that particular moment, Christopher Columbus made the biggest mistake of his sales career. He did not service the account. He thought that since he opened the door, that he was going to get all of the benefits from opening that door. And he did not sell or service the account. And America's Vespucius entered the picture, and we did not become the United States of Columbus. We became the United States of America. Now, you see, ladies and gentlemen, this happens a lot of times in selling. We go make the sale, we don't service the account, and somebody else then ends up getting the business. We see that happening in marriage, don't we? Fellas, how we will make that fantastic sales presentation. We will court the girl, and girls, how you did a little courting yourself along the way. All of the promises you made back and forth to each other in order to make the sale. But then once the sale is made, a lot of times we do not keep on selling and servicing the account. And the net result is other men or other women enter the picture. You gotta keep on selling. You see, when you make the sale, you got your foot literally in the front door. A lot of people understand that when you've made the sale, you are in the enviable position of being in the driver's seat. But when you take your foot off the road, or your eye off the road, that is the customer, and your foot off the gas pedal, and that is service, that competition starts selling the idea that they are better drivers or that they have better gasoline, which they can service you with. Yeah, you got to keep on selling. The truth of the matter is, America was populated by salesmen. Sir Walter Raleigh toured the coffee houses of London and sold those ignorant, fearful, superstitious people on the idea of leaving the relative security of their homeland and coming into the uncharted wilderness. We were freed by a salesman. George Washington, probably one of the greatest salesmen who ever lived. And I want to tell you what his sales job was. He literally had to sell the farmers and the merchants and the backwoodsmen and the seamen on leaving what they were doing, coming and joining the Army or the Navy, going to war against the most powerful nation on the face of this earth, the biggest Navy and the strongest Army, and he had to sell them along the idea, let's go fight those people. But let me tell you in advance, now if we win, I'm not going to be able to pay you. And if we lose, they're going to string you to the highest tree. Now that's selling. Yeah, you folks... You folks who do any recruiting, how many of you are managers and have to hire salespeople, all right? Can you imagine your results if you had to say to the salesman, now look, going to send you on a sales call, odds are against you making a sale. If you do make the sale, though, I'm not going to be able to pay you. And if you miss the sale, I'm going to hang you. Now you tell me, how many sales do you think you're going to make? Now you got to understand, too, that the American colonists were deeply divided. Only 1/3 actually wanted independence. 1/3 were still loyal to the king. And 1/3 said, look, George, don't worry about us. Whichever side wins, that's the one we're going to support. And you can absolutely count on us. George Washington had quite a sales job to do, and he did it. When the war was over, Alexander Hamilton, his first Secretary of the Treasury, came to him and said, President Washington, let's get the Congress to appropriate some money so that we can study the methods which the British have used to establish their factories and, quote, agents around the world. And they appropriated the money. The study was done. And you got to understand that for the first 168 years of our existence in America, we had basically only reached the Appalachian Mountains. But then when they appropriated the money for establishing trading posts and what have you, and the westward expansion started, and as they moved westward, they could buy the guns and the blankets and the supplies, and in just 30 years after we'd won our independence, Lewis and Clark had made it all the way to the West Coast because salespeople entered the picture. Folks, I don't know how you feel about it, but I am proud and excited about being a salesman. When I die, I'm having real difficulty. I hope that's not going to be right away. But when I die, I'm debating on my tombstone as to whether I want them simply to write Zig Ziglar, salesman, or whether I want them to write Zig Ziglar, he wouldn't quit. I'm wrestling between which one of those I think I am the most proud of staying with it, or the fact that, yes, I am part of such a critically important profession. Then if it's so important and so magnificent, why do so many people not understand, even as a matter of fact, have a tendency to put down the profession of selling? Well, I believe there are about 4 basic reasons. Number one, it started with that old Yankee peddler image of using high-pressure tactics, of making people want something they did not really need, or making them buy something which they really did not want. That was one of the reasons. A second reason was because of this monstrosity that Arthur Miller wrote entitled Death of a Salesman. And not only was it a long run on Broadway depicting Willie Loman as the typical American salesman, a loser in other words to the nth degree, not only did they show it in a Broadway run for a long time, but then they put it on television. Not once, not twice, but 3 times, which simply characterized a noble profession for something it absolutely is not, and the effect was that of a negative one. Then the third reason a lot of people are not excited about the profession of selling is they have the misguided sense of what security is all about. A lot of people say, oh, well, I would want a secure job. They don't understand that security is in the ability to produce, and I'll get back to that in just a few minutes. But the major reason, ladies and gentlemen, why a lot of people really are not sold on the profession of selling is not anybody's fault but our own in the profession. And we must look at ourselves honestly and forthrightly and start doing our own homework and our own sales job. You see, we've learned how to sell our goods, our products, and our services. But we really haven't sold the profession of selling, and that's what I am about to do. Really get you excited about being a part of the profession. I want to sell to you the benefits of the profession itself, and the first thing I'm going to start with is security. How many of you remember way back yonder in 1981 and 82 they were having a so-called recession? Can I see your hands, please? Hold them up real high, okay? Now, during those, quote, recession years, there were literally tens of thousands of honest, sincere, dedicated, conscientious, hard-working, productive people who lost their jobs. They came from every profession, literally. I mean, there were teachers and superintendents. There were airline pilots and airline stewardesses. There were secretaries and janitors. There were truck drivers and miners. There were auto workers and electrical workers. There were steel producers and coal miners. Just about every industry lost their jobs. Not because they were unwilling to work, not because they didn't want to work, not because they didn't have the talent to work, but simply because of the economy itself. And many of them, as I say, were honest and conscientious and dedicated and caring and hard working. Now I'm going to give you a challenge. Name me one, just one, honest, sincere, dedicated, productive, hard working salesman or sales lady who lost their job back in 1981 or 2. And if they did, because the company went out of business, they simply could go down the street and get a job with someone else. About 10 years ago, when we were having another, quote, recession, I'll never forget this, I was doing a sales training seminar over in Atlanta, Georgia. Just before I was to speak, 2 young men came up and wanted to know if they could get a refund on their tickets. And I said, well, why? And they said, well, we just got fired. We had a personality conflict with our boss. We have nothing to sell, so we certainly don't need to know more about selling. Well, let me stress a point. Number one, I had nothing to do with the sale of the tickets. All I did was fill the speaking engagement for them. But I looked at these 2 young guys and I said, well, let me ask you a question. Do you like to sell? They said, we love it. I said, do you want to continue in selling? They said, of course we do. I said, well, let me ask you, if I can get you a dozen interviews before the night is over so that you can take your pick and choice of a good sales job, would you like that? They said, man, yeah. I said, come on in. You got the interviews. When we got to that point where I asked you the same question I did a moment ago, asked that audience the same question I asked a moment ago, how many of you ever hire salespeople? Then I'm going to ask you again, how many of you in this live audience ever hire salespeople? Can I see your hands? Now, we're in 1983. Some people say the recession's still not over. I say that a recession is something you either join or don't join. I just decided not to join it. And for that reason, our company has been exceptionally productive during this period of time. But how many of you sales managers right here today would have an opening at this precise moment, recession or not, for an honest, sincere, dedicated, conscientious, hardworking, productive salesperson? Can I see your hands? Those 2 young men left that night, each with over a dozen interviews for jobs. You see, the nice thing about selling is the security of it. Everybody works on a commission. My secretary, the president of our company, the president of the United States, the truck driver, anybody works on a commission. Even if they have a salary, they're on a commission, because the salary is dependent upon productivity. And if they do not produce, then it's just a question of time before the job itself is gone. And ladies and gentlemen, that's a fact. Why, you can even get to be the president of the United States, and if you don't produce like you ought to, they'll get you. How many of you had already heard of that particular story, okay? Now the question comes up, all right, Ziglar is secure, but is it realistic to say that in the world of selling you really are secure? Well, let me ask the question. How many of you in this audience today, live audience, and in the seminar audience viewing the film, how many of you have been in the world of selling for as long as 3 years? Can I see your hands? How many of you made more money in 1981 than you did in 1980? Would you hold up your hand? How many of you made more in 82 than you made in 81? done. How many of you made more in 1983, are going to make more in 83 than you did in 82? Now, what's this bit about recession? What's this bit about security? You see, the truth of the matter is that you have so much control over your income in this world of selling. Let me give you a couple of examples. In 1982, I spoke down in Victoria, Texas. I met an outstanding I was down there rather, for an outstanding insurance man named Calvin Hunt. Formerly played offensive line for the Houston Oilers. Once a year, he brings in a speaker for the benefit of the community. Calvin is an enormously successful life insurance man. He sells policies where the premiums run way over $100,000 a year, has a chauffeur-driven limousine, and his chauffeur drives him around while he's doing all of the figuring and preparing for his presentations. And Calvin said to me, you know, Zig, it's true that our industry is down just about 10%. He said what that means is that 50% of the guys and gals grow a little discouraged, and so they don't work as hard. Now, if 50% of them out of competition, business down only 10%, that's got to mean my business is going to double. Guess what it did? Doubled. That's right. You see, your business is not out there, it's here. But in other industries, if you're a welder or a truck driver or other things, you really cannot say that. No, you've got the security of being able to get out and go get so much of what you do. You can create business as a salesperson. I was out in Prescott, Arizona very recently. I met a man. I was working again with my good friend Ted Lamb, who's a Chevrolet dealer. In 1982, known as the worst year in the history of the automobile industry, Ted Lamb's business as a Chevrolet dealership was up 68% dollar-wise over what it was the year before. He sold 69% more units, and he had the most profitable year in the history of the automobile business for him. And he and his dad both have been in it for many, many years. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a secure profession for the simple reason that you can control so much of your business. The truth of the matter is, selling is a democracy. That's one of the reasons that I am so excited about being a salesperson. You see, my company and yours really does not care whether you're black or white, tall or short, fat or slim, male or female, extrovert or introvert. They don't in many cases even care about your education, though in some technological fields that would not be true. But by and large, the only two things they are really concerned about is your productivity and your integrity. And if you've got those two things going, then you write your own ticket about where you're going and what you're going to be doing with it. I love the profession of selling for that reason, because it is a profession which is a democracy. I love the profession of selling because we who sell are in an opportunity to help so many people do so many things. Some of you sell products which save lives. Never will I forget a young man who sold smoke and fire detectors, who the week after he had sold and installed it in one home, it literally saved the lives of an entire family. Think of the enormous feeling he got as a direct result of that. I love to talk to salespeople who sell products who raise standards of living, who make the people more secure. Never will I forget one day I was, it was back in Prescott, Arizona. And a lady came to me and said, I want you to autograph this copy of See You at the Top. Said, I want you to put it to my son's name. And I wrote her son's name in. She said, now you'll get a chance to meet him tonight, and he'll be walking thanks to this book right here. He was seriously injured in an airplane accident, and because of that injury, he was unable to walk, and the doctors would not even treat him with the idea of him being able to walk. They simply were going to teach him how to survive in a wheelchair. And he had just about given up. And a new thought, a new concept, a new idea came along about, yes, we can do a lot of things with our life. How do you think it makes me feel with a situation like that? How do you feel when you sell a product and somebody says, man, you sure saved me a lot of money. You sure made my work easier. This helps.
Here we go, wonder, can this be real? It's like I'm living a dream, but it's how everyone feels. We all unite with one feel. So let's wave our hands. We can sing, we can dance. We are strong, hold on tight. From afar we unite. Ah yeah, ah yeah, here we go, ah yeah. This is the time of our lives. Ah yeah, here we go, ah yeah. This is the time of our. This is the time of our. Ah yeah, here we go, ah yeah. This is the time of our lives. Ah yeah, here we go, ah yeah. This is the time of our lives. I love this moment right now. No one can take it away. So let it happen and how. It's why I cherish each day. So let's wave our hands. We can sing, we can dance. We are strong, hold on tight. From afar we unite.
Here we go.
Ah yeah, here we go, ah yeah. This is the time of our lives. Ah yeah, here we go, ah yeah. This is the time of our lives. Ah yeah, here we go, ah yeah. This is the time of our lives. Ah yeah, here we go, ah yeah. This is the time of our lives. What we see, destiny. Realize now we all know the greatest. Ah yeah, here we go, ah yeah. This is the time of our lives. Ah yeah, here we go, ah yeah. This is the time of our.
But Messi with a big goal, firmly into.
Good evening, guys. How did it go today? Did you train as a martial artist, or did you have success in controlling your mind in that greatest fight that we all have, in that martial arts battle? Did you control your mind today and achieve successes in your life? I hope you did. If you didn't, we got another day tomorrow. We got forever to go. So we'll get back at it again. Now I want to share with you a personal story about martial arts for me. I've never trained in it. I've never taken it physically. I do aspire and want to do that one day. But I want to share a story of my daughters who for a time did train in martial arts. And I'm so grateful that they did. Even though it didn't last for them at that time, what it did was open my mind to the martial arts way of thinking and being. And I absolutely love it because I equate it to the power of the human mind. And so let's remember that as we go on the rest of our lives. Have a great evening, everyone.
How to not procrastinate. Best way I found is you create a calendar. So you create a calendar and you put in your calendar the habits that will lead you towards success, right? So you have ideas for what you want to create, amazing. None of that happens until you create into actions, right? It's the actions and the habits that you do every day that lead you towards your dreams. Otherwise, they just remain hopes and dreams. So this would not be happening if it was not in my calendar, right? I had to schedule this in. I want to walk outside for 3 hours a day. Great. Well, when is that going to start? If I did not put it in my calendar, I would not be out here doing this. And so step one is you create a calendar that maps to your ambitions, that are the habits that if you follow those habits, you'll move closer to your goals, your business goals, your personal goals, your relationship goals, your finance goals. Are you doing the work? Is it in your calendar, right? Step one. And then step two is you teach yourself that you do what's in your calendar. We're eliminating the thought process behind it because procrastination is your brain gets in the way, right? Your brain is telling you, oh, I'll do it later. I can't do it now. I'm not smart enough, or I need to do some research first. Like your brain gets in the way. So the way to shortcut the brain is you create the calendar and then you do what's in your calendar.
Need motivation?
Watch this top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and I make these videos because the thing that saved me as an entrepreneur was watching the stories of other successful entrepreneurs, and I learned from their advice, I learned from their motivation, and honestly, I have no idea where I would be if I didn't have those videos to inspire me. I still need them for myself today too, and I hope that they can inspire you as well. So today, let's learn from me and my team's take on my top 10 rules of success. Enjoy.
So you create the calendar when you're feeling bold and courageous, and you come with a new goal. It's like so exciting, great. Don't just sit in that excitement and don't just go researching. Plop in your calendar how you're going to keep this consistently happening in your life so that you don't just get this momentarily burst of energy and then you fall back down, right? So you put it in your calendar how you're going to sustain this action. How I got this, I was at an event 2 weeks ago and I got this idea that I'm going to start walking outside. And it started off as 2 hours a day. Then last week became 3 hours a day. This week continuing 3 hours a day. It's great to get an idea. How many times you got an idea at an event or watching a video? You get some great idea. Awesome. If you just do it once, it's not enough. How do you maintain the consistency? How do you turn it into a habit? Don't wait for you to feel motivated. It has to go into your calendar. So I pop this into my calendar. And then when I wake up and I look at my calendar, I do what's in my calendar. So you eliminate the brain from the process and therefore eliminating the procrastination. So you create your calendar when you're feeling bold and courageous and on top of the world and unstoppable. Maybe like right now, you're getting some energy, go put something in your calendar. And then when you wake up, you do what's in your calendar. Do those two things. It'll change your life.
Rule number 2 is learn about marketing.
My question is marketing. Last year, I did an online somatic breath work and I didn't really know how to market. And I only have one person show up. People don't know who I am yet. So you have any tips on how to market in person for live events and online?
So the fastest way, if you want to fill it up, is through partnerships. Unless you got a big ad budget that you're going to start spending, it's partnerships. Whose space are you doing it out of?
The gym I go to.
Can you put flyers up in the gym?
Yeah, I can.
The people who are going to come to your event, they're paying you to come to the workshop.
Yes.
Could the gym help promote it and take a cut?
Yeah, I'm sure I can work with her, yeah.
If they email it to their list, then they get a commission.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe they don't even need a commission. Maybe they'll just do it for you.
Yeah.
Can you go and be at the front of the gym for the week before and talk to people as they come in and have flyers and share about the workshop that you have coming up? Have an announcement board you can put something up on. It's like, how can we use the location to help promote? Because there's foot traffic coming in every day. There's people coming to the gym every day. How can we help get our message to them and incentivize the gym? Maybe they do it because they just love you. Maybe they do it because you're renting space. Maybe they do it because they're making a cut. All of the instructors, all of the people who are, personal trainers there, getting to know them so that they're saying in the class potentially that you've got this thing coming up. So that's the easiest one. Next, you go to all of the local media, the local newspaper, the local Facebook groups, the local whatever, and get to know the reporters. So you're in Eureka, California?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Like there's some newspaper for Eureka, California. That it's not like you're trying to get into the LA Times. You're trying to get into the Eureka newspaper.
Okay.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
So what reporter is talking about the events in Eureka right now? Get to know her or him and let them know that you've got, because ideally this is an ongoing thing. It's not just this one event.
Yeah.
A weekly event.
Mhm.
Right? So building up those connections help. Rule number 3 is leave your comfort zone.
Self-confidence comes from doing difficult things. Self-confidence, self-love, self-respect, it all comes from deciding to do something difficult. Here's what happens when something hard comes up and you find a reason why you can't do it. It's too hard, it's too difficult, it's too scary. Most people will let you off the hook. The people around you will say, yeah, that's way too hard. I mean, the fact you even thought about it was crazy. You let yourself off the hook, but then you realize, I could have done it. Like that's the worst feeling in the world, that you could have done something, but then you came up with an excuse as to why you can't. And that will eat you up. And even if the world lets you off the hook, recognize that they have lower standards than you. Recognize that the people who are giving you that advice and patting you on the back and saying it's okay, you don't need to do it, they don't like their life either. They're stuck. They're trapped. They're not pushing hard. They're not being aggressive for their goals. They're not tough either. And we're reinforcing that comfort loop. Every day, comfort you versus growth you are in a fight. There's a war going on inside you. Comfort you versus growth you. Comfort Evan versus growth Evan. Every day there's a fight, there's a battle, there's a war going on. And you need to decide who's going to win the fight. It's a daily thing. And the more growth you wins against comfort you, the more you start to grow, the more you start to hit your goals, the more you start to have an impact, the more you start to love yourself. Because again, even if the world would let you off the hook, you know it's just an excuse. I think most people think of it as a giant step that you have to take to build that self-confidence. It's not. I think it's much more about the daily battles with yourself that then builds up to major things. Just like you don't go to the gym and lift 400 pounds, you start by lifting 5 pounds or 10 pounds or 20 pounds or 40 pounds, whatever it is. That's how you start to build the muscle. It's much more about the daily building of the muscle to show yourself who you are, much more than the one-off heroic moments.
Rule number 4 is tap into your heart.
I think I am much more logic driven when I look at like evaluation. So I have a lot of heart, but I tend to make these type of bigger decisions with logic. So trying to, even though you say follow your heart, it's a little bit challenging for me to make that switch.
It's the only thing that matters though for this. Like this is the ultimate skill to learn for big decisions like this. It doesn't mean like the concern then becomes, well, I would get too emotional and then I just do whatever comes into my head and blah, blah, blah. No, you're never going to be that guy. You're never going to be reckless.
Yeah.
But for imagine if you were getting married, you better love her. As opposed to, well, logically, like it makes sense.
I think it's probably both of those, right?
But it better be a lot more on the love. No. It better be a lot more on the love than on the logic. You see a lot of the guys who have been married for a while, like, oh my gosh, I hope he gets this, like touching.
I'm not married yet, so that's one of the reasons.
Well, but like this is a skill set to start to trust your heart, which you need. You need both. There are some people who only listen to the heart and are like doing all sorts of crazy things and never stay consistent on anything and never listen to the head, never stay focused, that's not you. You're the opposite.
Yeah.
So you need to tap into heart more and it'll make you a more successful business person, human,
how?
husband.
I know you don't like to focus on that, but how do you tap into the heart? Is I guess the last question.
When you feel something come through you, when you get an idea, your next step is when you get an idea, go do something on it.
The 2% rule.
Yeah, the 2% rule, 2% difference, right? So when you get an idea, what you will do is automatically start to plan it and judge it and come up with, Evan's holding up the special Cleveland edition journal.
I got that copy as well.
2019 tour, let's go. Yeah, that's it. Like when you get an idea, do something on it. And the good news is it's all low risk. Like what's your next idea? But to train yourself that great ideas flow through you and to take some immediate action on it. This is what I did because I'm much more logical and strategic I was like you, and I had to train myself to do more heart first. Big decisions with your heart. Because if you go into your next career or your next relationship just doing logic first, you're always going to be unhappy. Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
Rule number 5 is be curious.
Being
And here we are again. Legs crossed, back straight, eyes closed, deep breaths in through our noses and out through our mouths. The way we began. The way it all begins, always. Always with our thoughts. Our powerful minds, which are always subject to our control, no matter how hard it's been to control them. We know the truth, don't we? We saw it today in our effort. We see it every day in life, in the gym of life. We know that we have the power to determine what thoughts we will act upon, and therefore we also have that power to determine what feelings we will allow to flow out and through us. Because our feelings are ultimately connected to our thinking. And if we control our breath with our thoughts, we can always control our thoughts and therefore our feelings. To learn and to grow and to be mind healthy and mind wealthy, peaceful, kind, loving, free and successful in whatever we do, wherever we are, no matter what. That's why we are already, whether we know it or not, determined nation. A people, a nation that always has the power to determine, to think, and to be positively, undoubtedly, unwaveringly loving, no matter what.